Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching Daybreak, and it's time for the press review. 1 hour of the proper review from our top local and international papers. Well, I hand it over now to Dr. Constance Ikoku, a social commentator, a journalist, and a Rise News analyst. Over to you, Dr. Constance. Great to see you.
Great to see you at this way. It's been a while. Did you miss me?
Of course I did. Of course I did.
I knew you would. I missed you too. So
great to have you back.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you. Yeah. Good morning. So this morning we have two people to analyze the headlines with us. We have Otumba Shegu Showumi. He's a political commentator and newspaper executive. We also have in our offsite studio Dr. Austin Maho. He is a lecturer at the International Institute of Journalism here in Abuja. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us. So let's go to independent newspapers. Shall we pull that up? The Independent, Saturday Independent. We're going to look at the story on trafficking or money laundering. So Ribadu raises alarm over money laundering, drug trafficking through illegal charter operations. Essentially, the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, is accusing private jet operators who, according to him, engage in illegal activities through the nation's ports or airports. The Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, has set up an 8-man committee to look into this. The minister gave the committee 3 months to submit its findings as well as make recommendations to the government. The minister told us that Ribadu had last week written a letter to the ministry, alerting it of a spike in these illegal activities. He also says that charter operators connive with air operator certificate holders to engage in crime. I mean, this is a major indictment on the Nigerian aviation industry and security services, but it does not come as a surprise. Illegal mining has been booming in this country, owing to private jet operators who, load them in their aircraft and, fly them out of the country and make money. Otumba, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, good morning, ladies. Good morning, Nigerian. I think the first thing I want to say is that I would have expected that a sting operation would have busted a few of them, and it, as a result of the bust, that the headline then could have come. I understand what the National Security Advisor is trying to say, but I wonder why we need to put criminals on notice. And all of the crimes that is being alleged to have been committed are serious crimes, are serious misdemeanors. And a better operation or a better way to bring the news to us would have been seeing people in handcuffs, having them busted, and so that people kind of like really smell the coffee. But all the same, now that they've given them a 3-month window to clean their act, let's just hope that in 3 months they consider that the Nigerian space is no longer a place where such attitude will be tolerated. But be that as it may, I think slowly but gradually, one location after the other, one industry after the other, we must become a nation of severe consequences. Otherwise, how do you explain why we're able to continually deal with small arms, deal with illegal mining and all the consequences, deal with drug trafficking and the potential possibility that we can become not just a transit nation, but also a drug use nation? And I think that, yes, that's the right thing to do, but I would prefer a little bit more action.
Yeah, Dr. Maho, when you think about it, we always set up committees in Nigeria. It's the first thing to do. Sometimes the white paper is issued, recommendations are made, and then everything goes quiet. Are you hopeful about this?
Constance, what choice do we have rather than to be hopeful? We have to be hopeful. But at the end of the day, the question we should equally ask ourselves is, who are the owners of the private jets? We all know that to own a private jet in Nigeria is not a piece of cake. It is usually members of the elite, the same elite who have brought this country to the state it is today. So one just hope that with the alarm that has been raised, and like Sowomi said in the studio there, it's like putting the criminals on notice who are doing this. But with the alarm that has been raised, we hope that government will have the courage to pursue this agenda to a conclusion and make sure that it is not just about talk, it's not just about setting up committee. Nigerians should be able to see concrete results and be able to, use one or two persons as scapegoats so that Nigeria does not become known as a country of drug peddlers and a country of a transit hub, for illicit drug. So I think it's a step in the right direction, but the outcome matters so that this issue can be resolved in the interest of Nigeria and Nigerians.
I believe this has been going on for a while, not only in terms of drug trafficking. There's so much going on. It looks like it's a free-for-all in this country. Adesua.
Indeed, I totally agree with the gentleman this morning. Excuse me. And, I have a question about the sincerity of purpose in whatever we do, really, as a country. Are we allergic to naming and shaming in this country? Like Mr. Showmi has said, Otumba Shegu Showmi said, you're putting them on notice. This is 3 months. One would think that before the National Security Advisor and the Minister of Aviation come out with such damning statement, they do have their facts. Then what about sanctions and penalties? And I'm not just talking about slap on the wrist. How about asset seizures? When you name and shame, it serves as deterrence to others. But it doesn't look like we beat around these issues, we make these comments, set up committees, and I wonder what really are we doing? We are quick to parade petty thieves. We are quick to parade people arrested. But when it comes to such crimes that affect, like you said, it's expensive to get a private jet. And then you're setting up committees. Why?
So I think in the next 3 months, a couple of months down the line, we want to see who and who is involved. You want to see that the security forces have taken them up. You want to see people on trial.
Indeed.
You also want to see people go to jail. Well, we'll be watching. That's a story that has been highlighted. So let's go to Punch. Punch newspaper will be taking a look at the story on kidnapping spree. Police upgrade tracking system as 1,290 Nigerians were abducted in 2024. The story tells us that the Nigerian police has procured advanced technical equipment to enhance its tracking capabilities. The figure on kidnap is on the rise. It's not slowing down at all. Other figures also say that more than 17,000 Nigerians were abducted between 2019 and 2023. This was under the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. I bet you it's probably more than that. These are official figures. And so the police is saying that they want to do more on this. Is this going to be another story? Otumba Shegu.
Very typical. You've been dealing with kidnapping of the level that we've been dealing with. I'm not sure there's any other part of the globe where this issue of kidnap for ransom has become such a business that it comes in every day for so many years, and all the police can come and tell us is a press conference telling us they want to scale up. I would have expected that they would have scaled up, and then we would have felt the impact of their scaling up. That's the first part. The second part is that I remember when the last administration, at the twilight of that administration, tried to bring some sanity into the quantity of money that people hold in the country. And I know that by that arrangement, it was expected that even the ransom that will be paid will become difficult to be sourced. And once there is no motivation or there's no ability to get that kind of money without passing through the banking system, you'll expect a nexus or a direct impact on the entire trade. But here we are, those who felt that all policies must work for elections insisted that it had to be, reversed, and the reversal has produced this kinds of situation that has impacted inflation. Even more importantly, that's also aided this kidnapping business. I think for me, the Nigerian police itself needs a major overhaul, not just the tracking ability, so that we can begin to see that this nation is a nation of crime and sure punishment. Until we get to that level, we will not be able to really stem anything. If we're not dealing with kidnapping, we're dealing with banditry. If we're not dealing with banditry, we're dealing with arson and all of the issues that is all over the country. So whatever collaborative efforts you expect the Nigerian nation to invest money in such a way that tracking, viewing it remotely and, just going after criminal, including profiling them now that you're supposed to have all of the identification with, in the system, also with your telephone, supposedly also tracked to your name and all of that. we expect to see significant impact in the reduction of this crime. But if the police is happy to do a press conference to tell us, then maybe we'll just say, let us just live our lives in the hands of the ones that are very good at doing press conferences.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, when you think about it, you get a sense that the police seems totally overwhelmed by all the crises that is going on, you know, the different security problems. And then they're telling us that they have to do this. But also the other day we were discussing the story on the Police Service Commission and the police force fighting over the recruitment of police officers because, you know, we do not have enough police in the country. Dr. Austin, how do you see this going forward? It's an issue, really, when you don't have enough police officers, and then you talk about the adequate equipment in order to do your job.
Yeah, going forward, I think we need to be serious as a nation. It's not just about talking. Issue of security, if we are able to resolve it as a country, half of our national problems will be dealt with. But are we dealing with it? One of the technical definitions of madness is when you do things, the same thing, over and over again, you expect a different result. By now, we expect the police to be thinking out of the box, to coming up with real solution to the real security challenges we face as a nation. We've gone beyond the stage of talking, proposal, trying to put in more money, believing that more money will solve the problem. It's not going to. They need to be creative. They need to address the problem in a different way, not the same old way. What we are seeing is the same old way. You raise the issue of the crisis or the conflict of confidence between the police and the Police Service Commission when it comes to recruitment. If you go deeply into that story, you find out that the police hierarchy is the problem. You have a PSC who is mandated by law and by a judgment of the Supreme Court to carry out recruitment. And the police is issuing a statement to discredit that recruitment exercise and putting measures in place to make sure that the management team of the PSC was dissolved. These are issues. You are confronting a bigger national problem, but you are using ego, your personal ego or conflict with the authority of a sister organization, you know, to deal with a national problem, when these two bodies are supposed to work collaboratively in the interest of the nation. So you find out that we still have a long way to go when it comes to dealing with the security problems in this country. What the police is doing currently is mere talk shop. We as a nation need real solution to the security challenges we are facing as a nation. Not just talk, but want to see action. We want to see results. And that is the way to go.
You know, Dr. Maho said that doing the same thing over and over again equates to madness. Maybe we are mad in this country at this one. Then, of course, the issue of underfunding for the police.
Well, besides that adage, or beside that saying, psychologists have said that when you look at the number of mentally ill in Nigeria, it's quite a lot. And, you know, it's not derogatory. It's just that we deal with a lot of things and we don't take mental health seriously. And unfortunately, we cannot separate the Nigeria police from the issues in Nigeria. The Nigeria police force is underfunded. They don't have enough manpower. They're treated badly, yet we want them to perform as superheroes. I don't see how that will happen. For me, that's the true definition of madness. And well, yes, it may be talk shop. We talk so much about the injection of technology into fighting crime, like it's being done in many places around the world. And we've seen the outcomes. So if you have shortage of hands, can technology fill the space? If the Nigeria police is now saying we're putting in tracking systems to help us with kidnapping, for me, I think it's positive, and I think it's the right step in the right direction. But we have to go beyond the rhetoric to say we are going the way of tracking. So what are the expectations? What is this tracking going to do? Mr. Showomi talked about a component of the monies that move within the ecosystem of kidnappings and the role of the banking system. What are we doing about that? Again, we need to stop beating around the issues and face them squarely. That's my opinion.
And you know, talking about technology, you haven't even automated basic office administration. I mean, exactly. People are still carrying files around. If you haven't done that basic, there's no way you can then scale up, you know. So I think it starts with those administration issues and then you work your way through, you know, but also the willingness to do that, because a lot of people also fight against technology. So you need to have a leadership that is, you know, focused and determined to change.
The system.
Yes.
Let the system not start fighting itself. Let Nigeria not happen to this. Like they say, let Nigeria not happen to the Nigeria police force with this move to inject tracking systems. So
it is a systemic issue. Let's go to This Day newspaper. This Day has a couple of front page stories, but we'll focus on the top mast. What Gen Zs want from their banks. This report is from a survey carried out on the needs of the Generation Z. These are those that are between they were born between 1997 and 2012. Oh my goodness, I feel old already. I feel so old. They are so young. So they're so young. Gen Zs are telling banks that they need unique services tailored to them, that cater to them, that are flexible. For example, what are they asking for? They need student loans. They want financial support for young entrepreneurs. We know that a lot of people among Gen Zs setting up businesses, especially in the tech industry. Improved mobile banking services, account security given the rate of wire frauds. They want more innovation for banks to sample their opinions in order to develop specific products for them. I mean, sounds very entitled, but at the same time, I guess they have a point. So I'll give a short story about an encounter with the Gen Z generation recently. I was helping an organization recruit, and we had two Gen Z people that applied. There was an oral interview, there was a written interview. For the written interview, we specifically said, do not use the internet to write this exam. When the scripts came back, it was so obvious that these people use ChatGPT. I mean, you can't be smart, but you can be smarter than yourself. But it was so obvious. And then when we did the oral interview, one of them, I think he was in his mid-20s, and he had changed about 6 jobs already, going to his 7th one. And we were wondering, you know, the instability, will he be able to cope? You know, there's a lot going on in that generation. But talking about the banking services, Otumba Shewumi, do they have a point here?
I think they do have a point. I think the things they're demanding is what all of us...
It's beyond the Gen Zs, really honestly.
Demand. I think kudos to them for at least bringing up what they think they should have in their banks. You have to first of all understand that banking is a private sector business that caters to customers. And if the population demography is as it is, then those that fall within the Gen Z are not just the today's customer, but the future customers of the banking, you know, environment. Therefore, the banks should do well to do all of those things and even more to ensure that banking in Nigeria is not just sitting down there, gathering deposit, not really lending to the real sector, not doing anything creative to help the Nigerian economy, posting huge profits, not serving the people and the customers as well as they should, not being innovative, not giving them loans and all that. I think what the Gen Zs have asked for in this time deserves the support and the applause of everybody. But to piggyback into what you were saying about the attitude of that generation, I think it's a responsibility of leaders in any society to incrementally improve the orientation, direction of that society, because the avalanche of information coming from all of the other places in the world with microblogging and all of that can tend to skew how a people think, and they may have a shift or a jump or a disconnect between their own realities in their countries and the things they see based on expectations in other countries. But on the banking demands, I think I'm down with them. I'm as Gen Z as you can Gen Z. I want them to really go kickstart that part of it, yes.
Otumbo, you are so old, don't even try that.
I know.
Young at heart.
Yes.
So, Dr. Mao, they're asking for student loans. There are pros and cons there. When you look at developed countries, most of them, they are loans for students. But at the end of the day, there's always a burden. In the US, for instance, students 20 years out of school, they're still paying student loans. And, it really drags them down. So that's, that's a negative. But on the positive side, a lot of students or their parents might not have the wherewithal to send them to higher institutions, so they need this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, student loan is okay, it's good. And thank God that the federal government itself recognizes the need for this and is implementing a student loan scheme for Nigerian students, especially those in tertiary institutions. So that is necessary, is the way to go. And of course, the banking industry itself should be able to carry out in the function based on research, survey. You ask those that use your services, what do they want? The so-called Gen Z, and like you said, don't we all feel old? When you come to a realization that the Gen Z we are talking about are those born in 1997 to date. From 1997. And they constitute, the most important thing which we should pay attention to is that the younger generation constitute a larger chunk of the Nigerian population. And for a bank that has its eyes on growth and the future, you need to pay attention to this upcoming population. In technology, we talk about digital migrants and digital natives. We all know that many of us, who are not Gen Z, we are digital natives. We are migrants to yes. the digital age. But we know that those who were born into the smartphone age, they are actually native to a digital environment. And they want to be able to do everything with their smartphones. That's where technology comes in. And that is why you find out that fintech companies who are using technology to develop financial solutions like OPay, MoneyPoint, and the others, they are becoming more relevant in the financial sector in Nigeria. I read a report recently which put some of this fintech at the top of the food chain when it comes to giving financial solutions, to the Nigeria economy. And I think the older banks, the legacy banks, should pay attention to what financial technologically based banks are doing to offer solution to the younger generation. Or else, if they don't innovate along the lines of what the Gen Z wants, they will wither and die out of the market. So the warning is out there, and they should pay attention to this report.
Very good points raised there. They are the future, Adesua.
Absolutely, and they constitute the larger number, like he said. But bottom line for me is banks as service providers, financial service providers, need to do better. I think customer service in this country, whichever sector you look at it, is still dismal. It can be very annoying when you have to wait extended period to get a service provider to you just because you are using that particular channel. And in this case, the banks, they can do better. I also think that there's a bigger problem that the banking institution, financial institution in general may be facing. In recent times with the Japa syndrome, I think we've seen an increase with banks struggling with their IT, their ICT, their technology, because these problems have been persisting. And then finally, consumer protection. So when customers go through this, how do they get a relief? How do they get a reprieve? And who is protecting them? So for me, those are the issues.
There are so many issues, flowing from what you said also at this one. With that Japa syndrome happening, you see a lot of weaknesses in the IT of banks, and there's a lot of fraud also going on. Otumba, what do you think about it? Because you meet people saying that, they were defrauded and it's so easy to do this these days. So banks have to really look into this.
I think that the scope of this program will not be enough to deal with all the issues in the banks, but suffice to say, the banks in Nigeria have been on holiday. They've been posting huge profits at the expense of the real sector. That's a problem. We've been finding out that people don't get any real service from them. except that you put your money there because you can keep it at home.
Exactly.
And even when you want to take the money, they've not made it as convenient and as good. The whole of their banking hall is so crowded. You wonder why they are not migrating people into platforms that can make it easy. On the concept of having not enough people to employ, that doesn't make sense for a country that has a large population. When people go, other people are supposed to fill in their spaces. So I think we need to rethink the entire concept of what exactly makes a Nigerian bank healthy. Is it just posting profit that you can't verify what sector of the economy they're lending to give them that margin, or how are they providing for the real issues within the financial sector? So that was why I said that whatever it is that the Gen Zs are saying now, it's not just the Gen Zs that are saying it, it's the whole of the alphabet A to Z of the country that is saying it. And I think that's the way I would want to kind of put it for now. Yeah,
essentially, the banks are not people-centered. Even when you look at the products that they are offering, or the fact that you want to get a loan as a young entrepreneur. So Gen Zs are also talking about getting the money they need to start up their businesses. It's so difficult to get that from the banks. It's usually the big guys, the Dangotes, the big companies that are the ones. And then at the end of the day, they all end up in AMCON, where the debt will be written off. Dr. Maho.
Yeah, talking about loans, if you ever want a loan in Nigeria, the worst place you can go to is go to the bank. How can you, like Showumi said, when the banking industry, they are not supporting the real sector of the economy, you begin to wonder where the large amount of profit, they declare at the end of every financial year, where is it coming from? You are supposed to help the real sector to grow. When the real sector to grow, that is when your bottom line as a bank equally grows. But you have the banking sector that is not supportive of the real sector of the economy, and yet they are declaring huge profit. It's a contradiction. It doesn't make sense. And we need to query this contradiction, because what banks does in other climes is not what they are doing. How can you? If I go to a bank today and ask for a loan, they are going to ask me for as much as 30–35%. So what kind of business are you going to use such funds to be able to make return and pay back your loan? These are fundamental issues. And as journalists, as it is now, we need to interrogate it and call out these banks and ask them, what are you doing to grow the Nigeria economy that you are declaring such fabulous profit at the end of every financial year? And what the Gen Zs, if we go back to them again, is asking for, they are not likely to be able to get out of the banking sector in Nigeria. But look at it this way. Somebody spoke about the Jackba syndrome, that it has led to a dearth of professionals in the banking industry. I have always said it. With the Jackba syndrome, what Nigerians should pay attention to is that the best brains in the country are those that are living. The doctors, the lawyers, the nurses, the ICT experts. Who are we left with? The politicians, the Boko Haram members, the terrorists, the bandits. Those are those that we are left with. So the professionals we need to help us grow the economy, they are not there, because the right atmosphere, the right environment for them to be able to operate doesn't exist. It's a major problem.
It's interesting that you put the politicians in that group. They'll come for you. But Dr. Constance, gentlemen, here from the producer. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching Daybreak, coming from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Let's hear your views on all the burning issues. Follow us on x@arise.tv. But we'll be back, like I said, in a moment. Stay with us. It's 7:33 a.m. West African time. This is Daybreak. Thanks for staying with us. We're still reviewing top newspapers from Nigeria and around the world. Dr. Constance Okoku, Arise News analyst, social commentator, and journalist, is of course still here with her analysts for the day.
I am still here, and I'm going to be here till 8 a.m. Bear with me. So let's look at New Telegraph newspaper. They're talking about supermarkets leaving Nigeria. Forex crisis. High-profile retail supermarkets mall exit from Nigeria. That's from the New Telegraph. And so there are so many factors that are affecting these supermarkets, unfriendly economic environment, there's drop in sales, energy issues, multiple taxation, Forex volatility, influx of substandard goods, and of course, competition. The other day, I went to ShopRite here in Abuja at the Silverbird Mall. So I was there for about 15 minutes, the light went off. It took forever for the light to come on. Before, there used to be some kind of light on the walls, even when the NEPA goes off, there's, you know, some light on. But there was total darkness. People had to be using torches. When it came back on, within a few minutes, it went off again. And then it came back on, and they told us that their system had shut down, that we had to leave. I had my cart full of, you know, goods that I had bought or products, and then I went to check it out, and they said, no, our system has shut down, so you cannot even pay. So I left everything and, you know, left the supermarket.
And that's
and
money
I was
lost
like,
for that period.
Everybody had to leave.
There was no sales for that period.
Everybody had to leave the supermarket, and then I knew that, you know, it's going down the drain. It's really tough for businesses. It's not only international supermarkets, even Nigerian businesses, Otumba.
Well, I think we should break this into like two parts. The part that has to do with the Forex issues. The major challenge we have in Nigeria, in my opinion, with Forex is the devaluation of our own currency. Once you devalue your currency, a larger quantum of that currency is required to sustain capital flight that investors who bring money here to put in their businesses will require. So if that will obviously mean you need more naira to be able to chase a little of that forex. That's one major problem. The other part of it is that any economy that wants to be paired with a foreign currency like the dollar, which seems to be the one we like to pair ourselves with, must understand that a certain quantity of such currency must be legitimately earned by that country to be able to, you know, manage this balance of payment. And if we're not producing as much, if we have taken the money from our crude oil up front, we're going to have challenges with inflows. To the credit of the government of the day, I can see them really, really struggling with it and trying to ride that horse. A lot of people say a lot of things about debt and all that, but the reality is that if you're not able to get enough dollars to keep your currency, to keep your country liquid, you will have this challenge. The other part is that we must also understand that at the heart of our FX need in the country is the big question: what are we buying now that we weren't buying 6 months ago? I have become persuaded that the quantum of extra naira that gets into the hands of operators of the Nigerian economy, governors, and what have you within the, you know, the FAC is what is producing the criminality of them now using a lot of our naira to chase more dollars than they need. That's a major problem. They need to figure out how to crack that. But that companies are leaving our country, especially the supermarket, as unpalatable as it may sound, we don't need to be excessively excited about that because they are here for profit in the first instance. And those services they provide, including the goods they manufacture in their country, when they leave our country, we're going to be the one that, if we're smart, who's going to now ask them that since you don't want to stay in our country, there's no point in bringing those products that you want to go and manufacture in your safe havens into our country. Because ours is that we have a large market. And our market must be our bargaining strength. If they feel like living at the slightest little irritation, then they must know that they can't be coming here for profit. Because what I suspect most of them doing is that they want to move their operations out of Nigeria to wherever the hell they like to take it to, and still want a large chunk of our market so that they can just be importing the goods, paying some taxes and all that. We'll deal with that. Then, in terms of the economy itself, I think that the government is confused, with due respect to them. They're confused in the sense that you have had like a whole year on this battle with this economy. We should have started seeing, you know, the what do you call it, the ray of light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can't fix power, obviously you're not going to be able to fix supermarkets. It's as simple as that.
You know, a key point that you raised is the Forex issue. And we've read stories about the federal government, not only in this administration, in the previous administration, swapping crude oil for debt. And so what you have is that you already sold it, you know, so you don't have any cash coming in. And so that's also a major part of the crisis that we face. Dr. Maho, are we deep in terrible problem, and are we ever going to climb out of this anytime soon?
I don't think so. I don't think we are climbing out of it soon. However, maybe people like you are climbing out of it. There's a statement from what you said earlier about going to ShopRite and you were able to buy a cart full
and I'm sure it was
of
full.
goods. Yeah, she said it that it's full and she had to leave it behind. So we should commend people like you who are able to put through in this economy. However,
this discussion is not about me, Dr. Maho.
I get that. However, the point is this. What we are facing as a country is cost-push inflation. The cost of production has gone very high, and the cost of goods in the market has equally gone so high that the producer cannot produce and the customer cannot buy. So that is the crisis, and is as a result of twin policies of the federal government. One, devaluation, removal of fuel subsidy, which has significantly impacted the purchasing power of the average Nigerian. And to me, when you see foreign companies that have been in the shores of this country for several years, leaving the country, it's an indication of the health of your economy. We shouldn't just talk down on it and say they can leave if they want to leave. They shouldn't leave. We want foreign direct investment, however it comes. Because the economy is not strong enough. At times when we flaunt our large population, we say, oh, we have the population, they should cut us because we have the large market as a result of our large population. The question you should equally ask yourself is, what is the purchasing power of this large population we flaunt out there? The purchasing power is very low. How many cars, like there was a report I was reading recently about how many new cars are sold in Nigeria, a population of 200 million plus. And that report said less than 10,000 units of brand new cars sold in the Nigerian market on a yearly basis. And if you check it very well, most of those 10,000 units are bought by the federal government, the states, and the local government. The average Nigerian cannot afford to buy a new car. If our purchasing power is so low, then there's no need for us to talk about having a large market. What we should do as a country is to beef up our economy, put money in people's hands so that they are able to buy. That will have a significant impact on manufacturing and a multiplier effect on the economy in general. So that foreign companies are leaving, I think is not something to be celebrated, but something we should worry about and ask the significant question of why are they leaving? What can we do to make them stay? Because they are the ones that go out there and talk about what they've experienced in our country. My brother in the studio there, Showomi, spoke about power. When you talk about power, you talk about security, you talk about corruption in government. When you put all this together, it kills industry, it kills the economy. Okay. And Nigeria as a country needs to be able to sit down and look into it. And when you talk about, finally, let me just drop this. When you talk about Forex inflow into the country, what is the problem? Why are we not having enough? Nigeria has an OPEC quota of 1.5 million barrels per day. Why are we not meeting it? What is the problem in the Niger Delta? Right. That consistently we go on talking about crude oil theft and no measures have been put in place to address it. And Mr. President, let us not forget, is the Minister of Petroleum. What is it doing to address oil theft in the Niger Delta so that when we beef up our production or at least meet the OPEC quota, more forex can flow into the economy? Because that's a low-hanging fruit that we need to take advantage of.
That's why you had something to say.
I just saw Otumba Showomi not really agreeing with Mr. Mao about the purchasing power and how many Nigerians have been able to buy cars. I think I saw him disagreeing to some extent there. But I just wanted to add to the long list of questions that the analyst in the offsite studio has reeled at this morning. Can we maximize the leaving of this supermarket? So they're leaving. Don't cry over spilled milk. Can we do something about it? And Dr. Ikoku, I can tell you that if Nigerian businesses, if they could exit, they will also follow these international supermarkets and exit. it's that bad. But is something being done about it? Definitely yes. We've seen the ease of business for some businesses in the country improving. We've seen the ease of business generally in the country on the international rankings, you know, dilly-dallying sometimes. But I think that there's a lot more that can be done.
Yeah, there's a lot more to be done. I hope the government is listening. Let's go to the international headlines and see what we're working with this morning. The Times. Do we have the Times? So let's pull that up. They're discussing the elections, upcoming elections in the U.S. Democrats discussing whether to ditch Biden. The talk, of course, comes after a disastrous debate and outing by President Biden. And his performance was so shocking to not only Democrats, but all other voters in the U.S. Democrats went into the debate hoping for the best. Of course, they were aware of Biden's flaws and limitations due to age. They took a huge risk by not having a younger candidate, and here we are. Can Biden recover from this, Otumba?
Well, you know, thank you very much. So this, the headlines and all this talk about that debate is one of the danger of what you call the single narrative proposition, when the one narrative runs out and everybody runs with it. I forced myself to go and eat the 90 minutes of the debate yesterday. And you know what I thought to myself? I said, what's going on with the people here? Yes, it had a bit of a slaw here and there, but the content of what Biden was saying was way more superior than the yapping that Donald Trump was doing. I listened to him on what he was doing on the economy. I listened to him what he was talking about with NATO. I heard what he was saying clearly about Medicare. I heard what he was saying about, you know, managing immigration and making America. And I kept telling myself, why is people making it seem as if the guy was incoherent to the extent that they couldn't even hear what he was saying? And I listened to him, to the Trump. Trump was just bullying, he was just raking, he was just throwing invectives, and I was saying to myself that, this is the world running berserk? Are you going to run a national economy, an economy as large as America, on the madness of one individual that can just go ape shit on you? So I think that the single narrative proposition and the danger of it requires that journalists should not just run with the headlines that some people create. They should go read and watch and see and decipher precisely what is said. And in any case, elections are not really won by debates. Elections are won by a whole lot of other things, which I'm not predicting who will win or who will not win. But I think everybody just didn't give Biden enough slack. I think Democrats relax. It's not as bad as we make it seem, and I'm a damn good critic.
Says a politician. He is a politician, so he's wearing his politician hat now. Dr. Maho, well, it seems like, Otumba, you're a fan of Biden, or you're supporting Biden? But,
Democrats.
But, yeah, Dr. Maho, where are you? Which side of the divide are you? On how did you see everything that went on? I mean, he went on to North Carolina. It was a totally different
yeah, but they're different
It
persons,
was a
yes.
totally
And
different output, yes.
And he was himself. In North Carolina, I think it was a redemptive outing for him. However, Trump is always a Trump. Trump is characteristically Trump. What did you expect? Biden is characteristically Biden. He stayed on issues. He's 82 years old, for crying out loud. What do you want an 82-year-old man to do, to jump around the stage? He could only, and like what my colleague said, he stayed on issues. And the issues are germane to the American public, who are going to vote in November in their general election. And I think what we should learn from it as a nation is, look, let's base our politics on issues. Issues should dominate, not somebody who can, because there was a lot of character slaw coming from both candidates. Yeah. You know, in North Carolina, Biden, I was shocked when he spoke about describing Trump as an alley cat. No, that shouldn't come. I think he should maintain, you know, that his dignified stand in confronting issues that actually concern the American people. He should stay on issue. At this stage, talking about changing Biden, it's too late in the day. Who is going to fill that position? Who is there? Kamala Harris? He can't fit in.
She can't even
yeah, he can't. Or they go back to Hillary Clinton.
Oh,
I don't think
that's way back. So, see, talking about issues.
Or Michelle Obama. Those are the women being thrown up. But the point is that, the point I know is that it's too late in the day to start talking about, you know, a change of candidate for the Democrats.
Right, talking about issues, both of them stayed on message. It's just that they are two different parties. They have two different worldview. They have two different thought processes. You know, so on the message of NATO, the war in Ukraine, on Russia, on immigration, the borders, Trump was a typical you know, conservative. On the same issues, of course, Biden was a typical Democrat. On abortion, all other local issues. So they both stayed on message. That's why.
So you say, I do not envy the American people at this time. They have what we like to describe as the two worst candidates at the moment. It's a Donald Trump or a Biden. Yes, Donald Trump may on the night have broken the fact-check machine, but we also know that Biden exaggerated some of the things he said. So many things he said about Medicare aid, you know, and how much, you know, it's costing. We know those figures he gave were totally wrong. And he's not as fast as he used to be. Of course, age is catching up with him, talking about Biden. He's not as coherent as he used to be. Again, age is catching up with him. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, like I said, is typically Trump, you know, he's bullish. And it was not a fair debate. You cannot have a Donald Trump and a Biden on the same stage and expect something different from what we have seen. Like you rightly said, in Atlanta, Biden was a totally different person, of course, because the atmosphere was different. He had teleprompters. He had a crowd that was riling him up. And it doesn't look like he's backing down, because he said it himself that he's not going to quit. We've also heard from his campaign manager saying they're not going to quit. However, party donors and, you know, some top party Democrats are saying they are giving him 1 week, and I think the Telegraph has that story this morning. They're giving him 1 week to step down. It's not a fantastic time for American politics, unfortunately. I do not envy them.
So we have a few minutes left, so we're going to be brief on our comments here. The Guardian UK, Keir Starmer must win. Only his government can shape the future we want to see. This is according to The Guardian. The Guardian newspaper has already thrown its weight behind Keir Starmer, the Labour candidate. They argued that a Labour victory should be a reason for hope. They said the Tories cannot win. They do not deserve to win after 14 years of woeful performance and austerity measures forced on the electorate. The Guardian says the major crisis was when voters were told to leave the EU. Nothing could have been further from the truth, Guardian adds. And I quote Guardian also, it's been 5 years of unremitting cruelty and chaos. Starved public services and a miserly welfare state have seen life become poorer, nastier, more brutish, and shorter. Wow, very strong words from the Guardian newspaper for the Tories. Otumba.
Well, that's the beauty of how the election season is in the UK. Labels and titles take a position, and they're not, you know, pretending about it. They push the position of the side they want to be on. That's okay. Some other guys, maybe the Telegraph and co, may pick a different position. But for me, what I think is that I think that constantly the conversation around democracy and election is always about the desire for change. And it's so constant that it doesn't matter what the guy in charge is doing, it doesn't matter how much hope he's trying to solve, it doesn't even matter the reality of how difficult the problem is trying to deal with, there will always be the other guy saying, no, we want a different thing, we want a different thing, we want a different thing. Would it be better for them after they've gotten different? They're the only ones that will say it. Remember when they wanted to do the Brexit? Some of us that were a little bit more sensible kept saying, why would a small, tiny island run out of a big market and not suffer some consequence? The ginger-head man was there all over the place, dancing, jumping, and at the end of the day, they're complaining now, they can't keep jobs, the fundamentals of the economy is bad, living standard is very low. So it's their election. We have our own views, but they can go vote who they will vote, and they shouldn't interfere in ours, just like we won't interfere with them.
Atumba, Boris Johnson will come after you.
That's okay. I'm waiting for him.
Okay, Dr. Maho, yeah, I mean, elections all over the place. What do you make of what is going on between the Labour and the Tories? I mean, the Tories have had a run, and normally after a while, after a cycle, the support of parties diminish, and then they have to go away. They must go away.
it's like Otumba said, the British public, they are ready for a change. And whatever it is, they will dig it up and use it against them. Significantly, what we are looking at, the economy in the UK is down. You know, people are complaining about austerity and all that. And it all started from Brexit. So who would take the rap and the blame for Brexit? Of course, it's the Conservative, the Tories. So they are using that as a beating stick against them to say, well, you've had your time for the past 14 years. Now let's go for a change. And of course, all polls seems to suggest that, look, the Conservatives will lose the upcoming election in the United Kingdom.
I think we have less than a minute. Quickly, daily graphic: marijuana, cocaine, heroin making Africa hard drugs transit hub. This is according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Adesua, and whatever else you have to say on the UK.
So for the UK elections and for politicians worldwide, there's always a day of reckoning. And I think that's what's happening to the Tories, the Conservatives. Rishi Sunak used to be the popular guy in the party. Unfortunately, the party has dragged him down, and see, the numbers are poor. We wish them the best in the next couple of days in the elections. For the transit hub, I think Africa has even gone beyond being just a transit route to now being a continent that uses, and we can see the numbers. It was just International Drug Day, the Day Against Drug Abuse some days ago, and you saw the numbers ruled out by the NDLEA in Nigeria here. They are staggering numbers. Young people are way deep into drugs. The consequences are enormous for the country when you talk about social vices and insecurity. So beyond it being a transit hub, Africa is now consuming these hard drugs, unfortunately, and we must do more. The president says it's beyond a national fight. It has to be international to get rid of this, if we can. You
do not want an epidemic on your hand.
Indeed.
I think that's all we have for the newspaper reviews, local and international.
Okay, so that's all we have. We have to thank our analyst this morning, Dr. Otumba Showumi.
Doctor.
Otumba Showumi. Titles in Nigeria. Right, oh my God. Oh, I'm right. You see, titles in Nigeria. But, well, Otumba Showumi, Shegu Showumi, thank you so much for being on the show this morning. And Dr. Mao. Dr. Mao, thank you as well for your analysis. Dr. Constance Ikoko, always a pleasure to have you on Daybreak, as always, for the paper review. Dr. Constance Ikoko is a Rise News analyst, a journalist, and social commentator.